In 1959, 9 experienced hikers fled their tent in the middle of the night. They didn't put on their boots. They didn't grab their coats. Instead, they cut open the side of the tent from the inside and ran barefoot into the freezing darkness. The temperature outside was minus 30 degrees Celsius. Weeks later, rescuers found their bodies scattered across a frozen mountain. Some had frozen to death. Some had massive internal injuries, and one of the hikers was missing her tongue. More than 60 years later, no one knows what scared them enough to run. This is the mystery of Dyatlov Pass. In January of 1959, a group of young Soviet hikers set out on a difficult ski expedition through the northern Ural Mountains. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student and experienced mountaineer. With him were 8 other hikers. They were all highly trained. Most had completed extreme winter expeditions before. This journey wasn't just for adventure. If they completed it, they would earn the highest level of Soviet hiking certification. But from the beginning, the trip was difficult. Freezing winds tore across the open mountains. Snowstorms slowed their progress. At one point, one member of the group became ill and decided to turn back. That decision would save his life. The remaining 9 hikers continued deeper into the mountains. Their destination was a remote peak known as Kholat Syakhl. In the language of the local Mansi people, the name means something unsettling. Dead Mountain. On February 1st, the hikers set up their tent on the exposed slope of the mountain. It wasn't an ideal place to camp. The area was open and vulnerable to strong winds. But for reasons we still don't fully understand, Dyatlov decided to stay there for the night. The group cooked dinner. They wrote in their journals. They took photographs. Everything appeared completely normal. But sometime in the middle of the night, something happened. Because suddenly, the hikers abandoned their tent, not through the entrance, but by cutting their way out from the inside, and they ran into the freezing darkness. When the hikers failed to return home, search teams were sent into the mountains weeks later. After days of searching the snow-covered slopes, rescuers finally discovered the campsite. The tent was still there, but it was partially collapsed and buried in snow. When investigators examined it, they immediately noticed something strange. The fabric had been slashed open from the inside. Inside the tent were the hikers' belongings. Their boots, their coats, their food. Everything they would have needed to survive the cold. But the hikers had left without any of it. They had run into minus 30 degrees Celsius temperatures wearing little more than underwear. Investigators then noticed something else. Footprints in the snow. The tracks led away from the tent and down the slope of the mountain. And what they showed was disturbing. Some of the prints were barefoot, others were made with only socks. Even stranger, the footprints suggested the hikers were walking, not running. For nearly 1.5 kilometers, the tracks continued through the snow. Eventually, they reached the edge of a forest, near a large cedar tree, and this is where rescuers made their first grim discovery. Under the cedar tree were the bodies of 2 hikers. They were barely dressed, just underwear. Nearby, investigators found the remains of a small fire. It appeared the hikers had tried desperately to warm themselves before freezing to death. But something else about the tree stood out. Several branches high above the ground were broken, nearly 5 meters up, as if someone had climbed the tree in a hurry, possibly trying to look back toward the mountain, trying to see something. But what? As search teams expanded the area, they made another discovery. Between the cedar tree and the abandoned tent, 3 more bodies were found. These hikers appeared to be attempting to return to the campsite. Their bodies were positioned as if they had collapsed while crawling through the snow. It seemed that after reaching the tree, some of them decided to attempt the dangerous journey back to the tent, but in temperatures below minus 30 degrees Celsius, they never made it. At this point, 5 of the 9 hikers had been found, but the remaining 4 were still missing. And when they were finally discovered months later, the mystery became even darker. In May, when the snow began to melt, investigators finally discovered the last 4 hikers. They were buried deep in a nearby ravine beneath several meters of snow. But their injuries shocked investigators. One hiker had a crushed skull. 2 others had massive chest fractures. Experts later said the force required to cause these injuries was similar to a high-speed car crash. But strangely, there were almost no external wounds, no signs of a struggle, no cuts or bruises that would explain the damage. And one of the victims, Lyudmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue. Her eyes were also gone. At first, investigators believed this detail suggested something horrific, but later experts suggested animals or natural decomposition could have caused it. Still, the injuries themselves made very little sense, and the mystery was far from over. During the investigation, authorities discovered something even stranger. Some of the hikers' clothing tested positive for radiation. No clear explanation was ever given. Even today, this detail continues to fuel speculation. Over the decades, many theories have attempted to explain what happened that night. Some believe an avalanche forced the hikers to flee their tent. Others think the group may have accidentally wandered into the area during a secret Soviet military test. Several locals also reported seeing strange, glowing lights in the sky around the time of the incident. Another theory suggests a rare natural phenomenon called infrasound may have caused sudden panic. But none of these explanations fully solve the mystery, because several questions remain. Why did the hikers leave the tent without their clothing? Why did some suffer massive internal injuries? And what caused 9 experienced mountaineers to flee into the snow in the middle of the night? The official Soviet investigation eventually closed the case with a vague explanation. The hikers died due to a compelling natural force. No further details were ever given. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in history. 9 hikers entered the mountains. Something happened that night. Something terrifying enough to make them cut open their tent, run barefoot into -30 degrees darkness, and never return. Now that you've seen the evidence and the theories, the question is, what do you think happened that night? Share your theory in the comments. If you enjoy mysterious true stories like this, make sure you subscribe for more unsolved mysteries every week.